Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center, located in Fresno, California. And as I say each week, Fresno, the heart of the Central Valley, and the Central Valley is the heart of California. You know, it's really awesome when you consider that when I talk about the heart of the state of California being the Central Valley, there is so much stuff, so much agriculture that's produced here. We're like one of the largest agricultural producing areas in the world. Now, when you think about that, think about the energy, the creative energy that exists here in the Central Valley of California. It just doesn't get any better than that. And I hope your day doesn't get any better than that. I hope you started your day by claiming it before you even opened your eyes, that you declared that today is a great day. It's a good day. God has gifted you this day, and you are going to take ownership of it, and that you're going to go forth into today with God as your guide, as your guard, as your light, and you will own this day and all the goodness that is presented to you. And that's the way we should start each and every day. So welcome back. And we are in the middle of a journey. We started off the first week in January, and we are doing the 4 chapters in the introduction to the science of mind. The thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. But the last 2 chapters, instead of just doing them in one show apiece because there's so much there, I've split them up into 2 shows each. So this week is What It Does, Part 2. And we're going to pick up where we left off, and it contains all knowledge. But before we do, I want to go back and just cover one little thing again as we move forward, and that is love rules through law. And it's important that we understand this in all that we do, in all of our day-to-day life experience. God is love, and God, in that loving consciousness, gifts potentially to us everything we could need, want, and desire in order to live our life and to live it maximally. And that really is our purpose for being here, is to live life maximally, because we are God expressing as us and expressing through us. And how awesome is that? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to read this one section, and we'll move forward. Holmes says in The Science of Mind, he says, love rules through law. He says, in an intelligent study of the teachings of the science of mind, we come to understand that all is law and love, and yet all is law. Love rules through law. Love is the divine givingness, and law is the way. Love is spontaneous, and law is impersonal. And that's a foundation that as we understand that we can open up within our own consciousness, the idea of love being the infinite giver, but law being the context in which that givingness comes to us. Because as an infinite giver, no matter where we're at, and we've talked about Spirit, God, its sole action is thought, and whatever it thinks becomes reality. And as we are created in the image and the likeness of the divine principle of God, that the major action of our consciousness is thought, and the law is there, and it always responds. It doesn't miss a beat. But if we are in our ignorance, allowing our thought to roam into areas that are not in harmony with that loving principle with God, then the law still provides for us. And it provides things that create limitation, lack, unhappiness, sorrow, just so many negative things. We give it a name. We call it evil. Evil doesn't exist as reality, but it does exist as an experience. And the evil that we exist in our experience in our life is created by our own ignorance and thinking, and by the race as a whole. I mean, you only have to look out into the world today, and you see the chaos and the discord and the unhappiness, and it seems like each day it just piles on. There's more and more and more. And yet, the blessings for each of us, when we begin to understand that, is that we don't have to experience that as our life experience. That when we realize that the love, the God principle, the light exists within each and every one of us, that as we turn to it, we turn to the happiness that lives within us, that seeks to express itself in our life. Now, that's not going to instantaneously change the world, but it will change the world. And that's the promise. When Jesus said we love God with all that we are, with all our minds, our hearts, and our soul, when we love our neighbors, we love ourselves. On that hangs all the laws and the commandments, the laws, and the prophets, and that's it. And it's done unto us at the level we believe. And if we believe in good, if we believe in God, and we align ourselves with that, then love and law, as they go together in our own life experience, becomes a creator of incredible good. So let's move forward today. And as I printed out this chapter, because it's a little harder to read the small print in these lights, I want to move forward. And this section starts, contains all knowledge. He says the universal mind contains all knowledge. It is the potential ultimate of all things. It being the divine principle, it being God, it is the potential ultimate of all things. In other words, what can you imagine? What can you imagine? If you can imagine it, it's still within the divine potential to be created. People imagined airplanes, they imagined nuclear reactors, they imagined being able to feed more in the world, they imagined harmony and peace, and we've seen those things created in life. We just experienced Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday celebration last Monday. He had in his imagination an idea of peace and harmony in the world, where he believed and he taught that all of us are brothers and sisters, and that he taught that when we turn to darkness, darkness can only create more darkness, that it's light that gets rid of the darkness. Light creates more light. Love creates more love. Hate only creates more hate. Let's move out of the hate. Let's move out of the darkness, and we do it within our own self, in our own minds, in our own hearts, and it expresses in our life, and it influences other people. And we have the power to do that. That's the power that God has gifted us. Spirit has gifted us. So, to us, as much as is possible as we can conceive. And that's what I'm talking about. If we can conceive of a greater good, that much is possible. He says here, should all the wisdom in the universe be poured over us, we should yet receive only that which we are ready to understand. And boy, is that an awesome truth and an awesome limiting factor in so many of our lives. If we tie ourselves to chaos, then chaos is all that we can understand. If we tie ourselves to cosmos, and last week I explained that when Holmes used the term cosmos, what he was talking about is not the universe per se, but cosmos in its other meaning, which is harmony and order. When we tie our consciousness to harmony and order, to love, to peace, to that extent, we can see it demonstrated in our lives and beyond our lives into the world around us. He said, this is why some draw one type of knowledge and some another, all from the same source. Those that are drawing good and those that are drawing not so good. We all get it from the same source. There's but one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is our life now, and that perfection can exist and express in our life only at the level that we can open ourselves up and allow it to express, because God expresses in our life by first expressing through it. It's an important concept. I'll probably hit it many times today. I want you to get it. I want you to put it into practice in your life. So, moving forward, we say here, each state of consciousness taps the same source, but has a different receptivity. Each receives what he or she asks for according to his or her ability to embody. Can you embody love in your life if you're holding anger? Can you embody peace in your life if you're holding fear? Can you embody good in your life if all you see is limitation in the world? Think about it. What are you looking out into the world and seeing? Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, he wrote a book, and the title of the book is "You Will See It When You Believe It." And I know that he wasn't the first one to use that phrase, but that phrase is a powerful phrase that we can each use in our own life. What we see in our life is what we believe. If we want to see good in our life, then we have to believe in good. We have to believe in the divine principle. Someone pointed an article out to me this last week, and I haven't had the time to read it, and maybe I will or maybe I won't. I don't know. But the title of the article was something like something about religion and intelligence, or level of intelligence. In other words, though, and the premise of the article goes something to the effect that, those that are really intelligent don't need religion in their life. Well, in the sense of a particular dogmatic religion, maybe not. But if you understand religion as the study, the understanding of the divine principle of God, then, my personal thought is maybe that's where intelligence is. We talked about it last week, the idea of spiritual intelligence, as Judge Thomas Trord shared in the Edinburgh lecture. Spiritual intelligence is based on our ability to embody more spiritually into our life. And as we do that, we create a better life for ourselves. If we live a life, materialism, and that's where this article was going, and it was a big part of the scientific and philosophical community coming out of the 19th and into the 20th century. Materialism said all that we can experience through our five senses is all that is. As science has progressed into the 20th and the 21st century, more and more science and philosophers are looking into maybe there's something more than materialism. And they're beginning to open their minds, their consciousness, to an understanding that maybe there was a first cause. Maybe there is a first cause. In a New Thought philosophy, we have a belief that in a knowingness of this first cause. Not only do you have a belief in it, and one of the reasons why science of mind is called science of mind, or divine science was called divine science, because when they were taught, when they were developed, the understanding was that if you put certain principles into practice in your life, if you understood those principles, and somebody else put those same principles into practice in their lives, that they would get similar or the same types of results. And we've got a lot of history underneath our belt, so to speak, that speaks to that as being true. So moving forward, contains all knowledge. We're talking about the divine principle. He says life always becomes to us the particular thing we need when we believe that it becomes to us that particular thing. One of the other ways of looking at this is saying and understanding that that when we first obey nature, nature will obey us. And that's how, as humanity has discovered certain principles, we understand what those principles are, then we can put those principles into practice in our lives and we can see them work. We're going to take our first break. I'll see you when we come back. Got a lot of stuff to cover today. I want to finish off this chapter. Take care.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Chef Big Will presents the original Bonton Cafe. Stop by 7307 Highway 49 North in Mariposa for the best blackened or southern fried catfish. Go and eat good food and sweet drinks, including but not limited to Cajun and Creole, smoking barbecue, hush puppies, fried pickles, alligator tail, etouffee, prime rib, tri-tip, po' boy sandwiches, crawfish, oysters, fried okra, and so much more. Daily lunch and dinner specials. Sunday brunch from 10 to 2. Enjoy the taste of New Orleans at the original Bonton Cafe. And see their full menu at theoriginalbontoncafe.com.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
Harness the power of the sun and cut your electric bill down to size with Soltech Solar. Call today and request a free quote at 559-325-6907 or visit soltechsolar.com.
Looking for work? Tired of minimum wage? For as low as $200, become certified as a forklift driver at the Certified Forklift Training Center. Call 559-325-8097 or visit cftc.net.
Fresno Dixieland Society presents the Sounds of Mardi Gras, February 7th to the 10th, 2019, at the Doubletree by Hilton. Get your tickets today. For more information, go to FresnoDixie.com or call Linda at 209-534-1924. Again, that's 209-534-1924.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Hi, I'm the host of New Thought Talk, Reverend Steve Walling, and I want to take a moment today and give you an opportunity to support our ministry, support our show. You can do that through a PayPal payment. You send the payment through PayPal to the email address of Madera, MADERASAC @gmail.com. If you don't have a PayPal account, you can go down below the link and you can find where you can enter a debit or credit card. I want to thank those that have supported us and those that will continue to support us. You have a great day. Bye.
Christy Majors is your local real estate connection. With a solid, hard-working team, traditional listings, short sales, probate listings, and foreclosures are treated in a personal and caring way and close in a timely fashion. Since 2009, Team Majors has closed more than $75 million worth of homes all over California. Reliable and trustworthy, Christy and her team will go the extra mile for every client, whether selling or buying a home. So give Team Majors a call at 559-464-5606 or visit teammajors.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. We are located here in Fresno, California, and today we're doing part 2 of The Way It Works out of the third introductory chapter to the Science of Mind. And right as we went to break, I read, life always becomes to us the particular thing we need when we believe that it becomes to us that particular thing. When we believe, and as the master teacher said, it's done unto us as we believe. And it's just that simple. But when we talk about being done unto us as we believe, it's nice if we could just take it down to a certain specific thing that we want to believe in and throw out all the other things that we currently believe in. But we can't do that. We are, if you will, a holographic being. We're a spiritual being in a spiritual universe having a physical life expression. That's true. But in this, we are still God expressed as us, and God gives to us at the level that we can take. And we talked about that earlier. So when we seek to see something expressed in our life, we seek to grow our belief in that being expressed in our life, we also have to kind of clean up our act in other areas. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later today with something I always enjoy going back and rereading. And Holmes goes on to say, he says, as all material forms are but different manifestations of one formless stuff, so all things proceed from that which is neither person, place, nor thing, but is the essence of all things. Well, what are we talking about here? What is it that all things proceed from? It's neither person, place, nor thing, but is the ultimate of all things. It is the divine principle itself. In the beginning there was God, and there was only God. It doesn't say in the beginning was God and then the stuff that God made stuff out of. It didn't say in the beginning there was God and a space we call nothing, of which God made stuff out of. In the beginning was God, and from God all things which are made are made. And so we got to understand we're talking about the divine principle, and we can never escape from that. We can never separate ourselves from that, and yet so many of us do in our minds. We believe that we are separate. We believe that we are apart from, and that's always the signpost that takes us down the road that's called trouble. Because whenever we believe we're separate, we always deal with consequences that aren't so good. Because God says, it's done unto you as you believe. You want to believe in separateness? I'll give you a lot of separateness. And oh boy, that's not a good thing. So moving forward, he says here, our thought and conscious receptivity differentiate this universal possibility by drawing it through our minds and causing it to flow into particular channels through the conscious receptivity of our different faiths and our different beliefs. And that's kind of what I was just talking about. it's an exciting thing to understand. It's an incredible thing to put into practice in your life. When you see things begin to unfold because you have consciously aligned yourself with principle, first cause, God, that thing itself, however you want to relate to it. And it's not really that important the name that we give to it. And some people get caught up in that. Well, it's this, it's that, or the other. No, it's whatever it is that you can understand, that you can relate to as the divine principle. And that's the most important thing for you in your life. And when you get that you're kind of moving down the path, so to speak. Okay, so I want to make sure I get this all together here, moving forward a little too fast. So, okay, what we got here. Mental work is definite. Each state of thought taps the same principle. Each uses the same law, is inspired by the same spirit, but each draws forth a different result. Here is multiplicity proceeding from unity. When we talk about God as being this oneness, this allness, this wholeness, and yet out of God, all the different multiplicities, all the different things that can change come. But within God itself, God remains changeless because God is the potential possibility of all things. It's important also that we understand that concept, because being the potential possibility of all things, when we look out into the world and we say that with God all things are possible, that's where it comes from. God is in potential all the different things. Deepak Chopra wrote a book years ago called the Seven Spiritual Laws, I believe. And the first one that he talks about is the field of what he calls the field of pure potentiality. And it's a good way to look at spirit as God. It's a field, if you will, a potential of all good in all things, in all ways. We draw into our lives the good that we choose to draw into our lives. We talk about, I mentioned last week, we talked about this thing called volition. And volition is choice, and that's true. But what volition, going a little bit deeper, volition is our power to make different choices. We can we can choose one thing over another. And that's a power that God gave us. And God gave us that power so that we could learn to grow spiritually. And why is that important? Because as we evolved physically through the evolutionary process until we got to the point of consciousness, from that point, we being humanity, we become responsible for our continued evolutionary process. But it's not so much on the physical plane as it is on the spiritual plane. So that it's important that we have the ability to choose this or that. Choosing this may not be good. Choosing that may be the way to go. How do we know? We know by the good that we experience in our own lives. If we're experiencing good and that good is expressing in our life and the lives of those around us, we know we're right on with divine principle. If we are trying to experience good in our life by taking from others, we're creating limitation, we're creating unhappiness around us. Not so good. And ultimately we will pay a price for that. People get caught up in the idea of, somebody needs to be responsible for whatever somebody did. We don't have to worry about that. There's a law that takes place and takes care of that. It's done to each of us as we believe, and there's a law of cause and effect. Forget worrying about the other. Forget focusing on what the other is doing that you choose to judge as being not so good or not in alignment with what you believe is good or should be good for you to experience life in a happier way. God gave you everything that you need to experience life in the most happiest of ways, but it comes from within. As you develop that within yourself, Reverend Ike had a great saying that he used to say, something like, when we begin to seek God within ourselves, either the world around us will change and everybody will be happier, or we will change to be happy in the world as it is. And either way, we're going to be happy. And that's because we seek to see the greater good of God in our own life. It's a great concept. Reverend Ike was you you could do far worse than looking up Reverend Ike and reading and listening. There's stuff on YouTube there's there, and I believe his book is still available. It's important stuff. However, there's different ways to get the understanding of what we teach in New Thought. I'm a minister of religious science. It makes sense to me. I like teaching it if you haven't got that. But it may not be exactly perfect for you. So you can look up the Fillmores or the Brooks Sisters, Divine Science, or you can find Universal Foundation of Better Living. There's some great stuff going on in these things. You can go to Reverend Ike's church is still there. I believe his son is running it today. If you go online, look it up, you can find some really powerful stuff there. So anyway, it should be considered right to live and to enjoy living. It should be considered right to live. Our purpose in life is to live life and to live it more abundantly in any way we can that expresses good in our life and in the lives of those around us. He says, to be well, happy, and to express freedom is to be in accord with divine law and wisdom. That's where we want to be. Here is latitude enough for the most expectant and the most enthusiastic. The ability for each and every one of us to express and to enjoy life in a maximum way. If we're doing it in alignment with principle, at no time does it ever impinge upon or take from another living being. Think about it. We don't have to take from somebody something else out there in order to live our lives maximally, because God has provided for us in potentiality. We just have to bring ourselves we got to step up to the plate, so to speak. And that's what New Thought teaches us, is how, one, to realize that there is a plate, and two, how we can step up to it, and three, how to swing the bat so that we can hit a home run on an ongoing daily basis. So he says the secret is already known, or the secret already known. He says a treatment is a statement in the law embodying the concrete idea of our desires, accompanied by an unqualified faith that the law works for us as we work with it. And that's what we've been talking about. And at this point, today, right now, I'm gonna get to what Holmes is talking about when we talk about what it does. The it being the divine principle. The what it does is create. That's what it does. The divine principle, that which we call God. The action of God is thought. The law responds to the thought. Creation takes place. What God does is create. Creates always in our lives. Every day, 24/7, God's creating something in our life, in the lives of those around us. And we can be a part of how we experience that life expression and how much good we can bring into the world. And I talked a little bit last week, and we're going to, like I say, next month we'll probably get into the idea of this thing called race consciousness, or the collective unconsciousness, as Jung used to call it. But there's a great influence out there that we don't have to let be an influence in our life, but we have to be aware of it. Looking at the clock, it's time for our next break, so I will see you. When we come back, we're going to talk about treatment and what that means in our life. Gotcha.
Get your copy of Crouching Mama Hidden Veggies today, packed with recipes of delicious food cooked with hidden vegetables, so you can feel confident that you and your family are eating your veggies.
Contact Sprague Electric for all things electrical, solar installations, battery systems, troubleshooting, repairs, and more. Call 559-760-0712. SpragueElectric.com.
Are you or a member of your family beginning to show early signs of forgetfulness that may be Alzheimer's or dementia? The only way to be sure is through an expensive brain scan. Dr. Parminder Bhatia of the Neuropain Medical Center is helping in a clinical trial for those with memory problems, dementia, or mild Alzheimer's disease. Those accepted into the trial will have all costs paid for, from diagnosis to evaluations and trial medicine. There is no cost for those who are accepted in the trial, and there may even be some compensation for the patient's time and travel. For more information, call 559-437-9700, extension 310, and visit neuropain.com. When you experience flooding in your home, you need to call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service at 559-213-9430. After soaking in water for only 45 minutes, carpet starts to come apart. Clean Master Emergency Flood Service can help, and not just with carpet repair. They also offer carpet cleaning, upholstery cleaning, carpet installation, and more. Call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service, and they'll be there in 60 minutes. Call 559-213-9430.
After a tough day at the track, cleaning up can be a time-consuming task. That's why we use Extreme Cleaner, the non-toxic, biodegradable, multi-purpose cleaner and degreaser. Extreme Cleaner cuts through even the toughest of grease and grime. Fast. Great for cleaning tools and work surfaces. Extreme Cleaner. Tough on grime, safe on the environment. Visit extremecleaner.com to find a retailer near you.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. You know, one thing about doing a show live is, you know, sometimes you skip some things, you got to backtrack. And we're going to backtrack here just a little bit because I did skip something I wanted to cover. And going back here on page 45 in the textbook, we see we cannot fight the universe. It refuses to be budged from its course. We can only go with it. Okay, that's important. We can go with it. We use it. We're always using it. But to use it to our benefit, to use it to create good in our life. And, you know, I'll bet you there's nobody watching, no matter where you're at, no matter where you're at in your life today, that you wouldn't rather have a little more good, a little more peace, a little more harmony, a little more happiness in your life. Well, I'm telling you, it's available to you as you align yourself with principle. He says there is ample latitude for personal expression. How then are we to know what is right and what is wrong? And he says we don't need someone to tell us that within us, in our core of our beingness, we already know what's right and wrong. And you know, that's true. If we stop and listen, if we listen to that voice within us, because within each and every one of us is the light of God. It's there. As we open ourselves up to it, it expresses. And that's a powerful thing. He says it should be considered right to live and enjoy living, to be well, happy, and to express freedom is to be in accord with divine law and wisdom. We got that, right? Here, there's latitude enough. So, the principle restated. Let us restate our principle. We are surrounded by an infinite possibility, potentiality. It is goodness, life, law, reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. God becomes more conscious of God as we express life more abundantly. That's why I say our purpose in being here is not only to live life, but to live life more abundantly, more adventurously, more challengingly, understanding that as we do this, challenges are going to come up in our life. We need those challenges to overcome, to grow beyond. The Buddha said all life was suffering. Well, all life is suffering if you choose to suffer, or if you rather see life as a challenge and there are ways to overcome challenges, and ultimately that's what the Buddha taught, was that we can overcome the challenges in life. We don't have to be in a life of suffering, only if we attach ourselves to the materialistic understanding of the world. When we realize that there's a greater good and a greater God, then we can move beyond that. We can transcend. And as we transcend, as we meet those challenges, as we seek to align ourselves with principle, we grow, and we grow spiritually, and we grow in our life experience, and we grow in the good that we have and the good that we expressed. And it's a powerful, powerful thing. So, we are surrounded by an infinite possibility. It is goodness, life, law, and reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. Therefore, it wishes to express through us. That's our purpose for being here, to be God expressed as us in our life, and to be it at ever and ever higher, more abundant, more incredible levels. And that's available to us. With God, all things are possible. So we move forward. He says, the secret already known. And now I'm getting back to where I'd kind of skipped to. I said, a treatment is a statement in the law, embodying the concrete idea of our desires, accompanied by an unqualified faith that the law works for us as we work with it. Now, Holmes is talking about treatment. And again, this is the introductory chapters in the textbook, The Science of Mind, and he goes into great depth in the textbook to talk about treatment. But let's simplify it real quick. A treatment is, as he says, a statement in the law. What are we talking about? Well, if you're familiar with religious science, we have a what we call a 5-step way of prayer, if you will, and we call this affirmative prayer. We call it treatment. And the first step is the realization of divine principle of God. The second step is recognizing our unity with that which we call God. The third step, we make a declaration. We don't ask God to give. We realize in this declaration our good is already being expressed. The next step is what we call the gratitude or thanksgiving step. Now think about this. When we are speaking our word, and we'll get into this more as we go through the year, but as we're speaking our word, okay, we're stating a certain truth. And when we get to the point of thanksgiving, we're not giving thanksgiving for something that's going to happen. We're being thankful for that which already is. And those are important concepts. Not going to get into them too much today, but just know that when you give thanks for something, you're giving thanks for something that is, okay? And the last step is an interesting step, and that is what we call the release. We give it up to God. In other words, we get our fingers out of the pie. In discussing what he calls the law of growth in Chapter 6 of the Edinburgh Lectures, Judge Tord talks about how when we plant that seed, right, we make our declaration. That's what planting our seed is, right? But if we meddle with it, if we pull it up and look at it, if we worry about it, in effect what we're doing is we're killing that off and we're replacing it with something else, something of limitation. That's why it's important that when we get to the fifth step, we give it up to God. We give it up in confidence, in faith, in belief. And it's done unto us as we believe. It's done unto you as you believe was the teaching. It's important that we get that, right? So, he says, let us waste no further time looking for the secret of success or the key to happiness. Already the door is open, and whosoever will may enter. When we know it, when we practice it, when we put it into our life experience, we begin the journey. You know, one of the ways that I think it's still printed on the front of the Science of Mind books, it's a philosophy of faith, a way of life. And it is. It's a way of living, a way of life. And we create, through our way of living, more livingness within ourselves and for those around us. So he says treatment is active, not passive. A treatment is an active thing. When one gives a treatment, he or she is not sitting around hoping that something may happen. They are definitely, constructively, actively sensing, knowing some specific good. This is in accord with the principle that we seek to demonstrate. If we give treatments without definite motive in mind, the most we can accomplish will be to promote a salutary atmosphere. You can't hope for good and expect good to unfold in your life. You have to know that there is a divine principle. If you know that God is, and God is all there is, okay, and that what God does is create through us in our life, then as we give our word, as we speak our word, as we speak our treatment, okay? We're not saying, you know, God, if you got time, or maybe if I'm worthy enough, or whatever. It's done unto us at the level we believe. When we believe that God is, and God is all there is, when we believe that we are what God does, and we are the way that God expresses, and that God's purpose is to create, and create through us, right? When we got that in knowing this, at the level that we can embody that, the level that we bringing ourselves into harmony with divine principle, and giving up our judgment and our prejudice and all the stuff we've been through this, right? We don't have to go through it again. I think you got it by now. But at the level we can give that up, at the level that we can see good, no matter what it is we're looking at that level and that level alone, will we see more good expressed in our life, in our day-to-day experience. And that good, when we're talking about, is health, is financial abundance, is relationship, it's occupational, it's in any way that we choose or want to express life. And however that way is, for you, it may be different than me, but God is there for you just as much as God is there for me, because God is in everywhere, all present. So, the mind must conceive before the creative energy can produce. We must supply the avenue through which it can work. The mind we're talking about is our mind. We've got to be able to conceive it. And if you are familiar, if you happen to be a New Thought person and you happen to be familiar with Neville, Neville had a great way of explaining how we conceive this. And what he's talking about is the use that we have of our imagination. Our imagination is a powerful tool. Our imagination is where we create the mold, if you will, in our mind. At the level that we do and the feeling that we add creates a mold and gives the energy behind the mold for the demonstration we seek to see in our life. Neville called the imagination God within us. And, I'm sure it's part of, because God is in us in all ways, but it's understanding the role that the imagination plays. So, again, the mind must conceive before the creative energy can produce. That conception takes place in our imagination. And if we allow our imagination to get caught up in all the stuff that's going on in the world, if that's where we live, if that little squirrel cage in the back of our mind is running those thoughts around and around and over again, or if it, however you relate to it, or the ticker tape going from this side of the mind to the other, doesn't make any difference. However you relate to it, can you quiet the mind? This is why when we talk about spiritual tools, meditation is a very important part of our spiritual tools. It's not the only part, and I've talked about that before, but we've got to be able to quiet our mind, open up our heart and our mind to accepting a greater good. And the thing is, there's nothing that we have to do to start other than to start. We start right where we're at. We don't have to pre-qualify. We don't have to do anything other than making a choice, and we can make that choice. Right now, I've got to make a choice for our next and last commercial, so I'll see you when we come back, and hopefully I'll get to the end of this, because next week we're gonna start in on how to use it, and that's going to be awesome. So I'll see you when we come back.
Christy Majors is your local real estate connection.
With a solid, hardworking team, traditional listings, short sales, probate listings, and foreclosures are treated in a personal and caring way and close in a timely fashion. Since 2009, Team Majors has closed more than $75 million worth of homes all over California. Reliable and trustworthy, Christy and her team will go the extra mile for every client, whether selling or buying a home. So give Team Majors a call at 559-464-5606 or visit teammajors.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. Moving along, keeping in mind that when Dr. Holmes wrote this book, it was 1938, or at least when it was published. Life was a little bit simpler. In today's world, we're a little more high-tech, if you will. He probably might have used other words and other phraseology to explain what he was explaining, but we can still get the gist, the core of what it was he was teaching, you know? And so he says here, we should be very careful not to think that because we make the mold in our imagination, if you will, we must create the substance. He says it already exists. It is part of the life with a capital L, as in divine life, in which we live, a part of the universal energy. Definite molds or concepts decide the shape which is to be created from the general, what he says, liquid he's talking about. Spiritual substance, energy, apply the word that works for you. This should prove to us that there is a specific technique in mental treatment which we should not overlook. Definite molds or concepts decide the shape which is to be created from the general liquid. This should prove to us that there is a specific technique or mental treatment which we should not overlook. If we wish a certain good, we must instill into our own minds the realization of this specific good, and then, as this idea is the mold we place in mind, it will be filled with the substance necessary for the complete manifestation of the good in our lives. Sounding very simplistically, God creates, and God creates always. Not just physical things, but conditions, experiences. God is, and God is all there is. God cannot be, there's no way we can get away from God, if it's another way of putting it. So when we seek to begin to be the masters of our own life expression, the creators of our own life experience, when we realize that on some level that power is available to us and we seek to put that power into practice, okay, we don't have to necessarily worry about the what is. All we have to worry about is where we're at in the process, the technique we use, and the technique. The reason why we talk about in this, and Holmes created this 5-step technique, is because, one, it's easy to remember, and two, what it does is it brings our mind into focus to the task at hand, if you will, realizing that God is all there is. That's not just saying the words, that's coming to a point of realization, and realizing that we are God expressed as us. In other words, there's not God and us, but there's God of which we are a part of, and God expresses in our life by expressing as our life and through our life. We are surrounded in, immersed in, and it is all there. And so then when we speak our word, when we make our declaration, okay, there's a law that responds, and the law responds, again, as we've talked about, the level of our belief. And then we have the thanksgiving and the release step that we've talked about. It's important that we understand these things. One of the great things about what Ernest Holmes did in the New Thought movement was to bring this very simple step into someone's day-to-day life experience that they can use, and we can use it always. And if you take the time and you read what Holmes talks about, one of the things that he lays a lot of emphasis on is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Practicing our meditation, practicing our technique in spiritual mind affirmative treatment, practicing how we interact with life as a whole, practicing seeing only good in life. Why is this important? Because through practice, we create new pathways, if you will, in our mind, in our way of thinking. There's this thing we call our subjective, subconscious mind. And that thing I talked about before we went to a break a while back, the race consciousness, the oversoul. And like I say, later in the month, we're going to get into this because it's important that we have this understanding. If you do understand it at some level already, then realize that there are influences out there that we need to not allow to be part of our influence, if you will, in our life. Radio waves on stations we don't want to tune into, if you will. Okay? Moving along because I don't have a lot of time. Whew, we're running out of time. Okay, I want to get to the end of this chapter here. He says there's no mystery in truth. He says faith in certain specific statements has power consciously to oppose, neutralize, and erase and obliterate opposite mental attitudes. It is because of this fact that this study is a science that can be definitely used, and we must accept it as such. The mystery with which most people surround the search for truth relative to this principle is not read out of it, but is read into it. It stands to reason that if thought and faith, prayer, hope, and appreciation are anything at all, they are definite. And if they are definite, they must be specific. And if they are specific, then they unquestionably must accomplish their desire. We are incredible beings. You are an incredible being, no matter where you're at in life today. You know, if you've watched some of the shows in the past, one of the things I talk about is that we are all created equally, and that's true. But we're not all born in equal conditions, under equal circumstances. You say, well, that doesn't make life really equal, does it? Well, the thing to understand is no matter where you're at in life, when you were born, no matter what the circumstances are, in potential, all of God is there. So there's no place, no space where you can be that all of God's good, all of God's love, all of God's ability, potential is not available to you when you begin to realize and understand that it is available to you. That's our spiritual path, our spiritual journey. So God, the thing itself, what a great idea. 1938, Holmes is talking about the thing itself, the way it works, realizing that you are, in fact, the way God works in the life expression, and that the greater life experience that you live, the greater God is expressing life through you and, in a sense, experiencing life as you. What God does, it creates, and it's always creating. From the initial moment of creation right now into the next moment. There's no time when God is not creating. As a matter of fact, God creates in and out of time because God is. God is all it is. So, you know, we can understand these things. We can kind of wrap our minds around them. Remember that this is just the introduction to the Science of Mind concept and book, so that new people or even old people that want a quick review can go back through them. You know, and I hope that you take the time and review what we've covered the last couple of weeks, and we'll watch for the next 2 weeks as we finish this off when we talk about how to use it, because you are what it does. You are creating in your life. You are how it expresses, and you are God expresses you. That realization is awesome. That's what we're here for. That's what it's all about. There's some great stuff that I got planned coming up this year. The understanding how the idea of the concept of God has evolved. And it's something that Holmes talks about that, you know, and it's just kind of a foreshadowing of something to come. But, you know, he said, as humanity has evolved, so has our understanding of God. And that's so very true. There's a fellow that lived quite a few years ago. His name was Harry Emerson Fosdick, and he wrote a book on it's titled something about understanding the Bible. That's not in print anymore, and he's a man, in many cases, long forgotten. You can look him up. There's a lot of important things that he brought into the world. He wasn't a New Thought teacher, but he was a thinker. And he's got a great section in that book I happen to have a copy of, as he talks about the evolution of our understanding of God through the early days of the Hebrew tribes, tribal God, to the God of Jesus, the master teacher, and what he really taught and brought into the world. So we'll close for this week. I hope that you've been enjoying this. I look forward to seeing you next week. If you happen to be around in the Fresno area, you can see us at the Spiritual Awareness Center. Otherwise, our tech Mike has been helping us by putting up a Sunday lesson as we do it, and as we can, we'll continue to get those up. And I will see you next week. Know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. Why? Because wherever you are at, God is there, and all is well. Have a great week, my friends. I'll see you next week. How to use it. Hi, I'm the host of New Thought Talk, Reverend Steve Walling, and I want to take a moment today and give you an opportunity to support our ministry, support our show. You can do that through a PayPal payment. You send the payment through PayPal to the email address of Madera, MADERASAC @gmail.com. If you don't have a PayPal account, you can go down below the link and you can find where you can enter a debit or credit card. I want to thank those that have supported us and those that will continue to support us. You have a great day.